Hi, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter, your Sports Illustrated beat writer covering the Las Vegas Raiders and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast, joined as we are. Welcome him back over his summer hiatus. He took a little bit of a break, but he is an award-winning journalist, great journalist. He is a terrific attorney down in the Buckhead, Atlanta area, and he does a great job each and every week talking to us Raiders, NFL. It is the great Johnny Shop, or Johnny Guitars is the way we like to talk to him. And Johnny, how are you, bud?
I am good, Hondo, and I am on steroids. Got a little fluid in the ear, got a little steroids going. So I just want to throw that disclaimer out. I haven't really felt them. I'm not charging up, running up and down a hill, but somebody out there once upon a time thought I was on mushrooms or something else. No, but today I am on steroids, maybe on them next week. Hopefully.
Wait. What are you talking about? Who thought you were on mushrooms?
I don't know. I saw that in the comments one time, way back. I was like, I don't have a cow to pick any mushrooms from. I don't know anything much about them, but okay. But little steroids to help get rid of a super long-term fluid left in an ear infection, but otherwise good physical. So
let me give you a word of advice. And it came to me from Zeke, and I ignored it until somebody took a really bad racial shot at my son, who happens to be half black and half Filipino. Now, I just don't read him anymore. I have a person that goes through looking for filth to delete out, but I don't read them anymore. Once people start taking shots at your kids, you just let it go. It's not worth it, and because the thing is, it's just 1%. And it's not worth punishing the others. You just let it go. John, we got a lot to talk about. And I want to start, obviously, Raiders, Richard Seymour. First of all, great guy. He is a great guy, great football player. And now there's reports about him potentially becoming a minority owner in the Raiders. We've heard about it with Tom Brady. You're an attorney. Give us your thoughts on this trend.
This, to me, is a Bert Blyleven perfectly thrown curveball. I did not know what Richard Seymour was up to. I find it interesting that we're trying now to put a package together with Tom Brady. We're looking at something like 10.4% of the Raiders. That doesn't sound like much. It is humongous. Can you imagine how many franchises of your favorite fast food or fresh casual, whatever it is, that you could purchase for this kind of money? Mm-hmm. A lot. This is interesting. We've got private equity possibly coming into the NFL. Roger Goodell talks a bit about that in his Sun Valley interview that we're going to talk about in a minute. But I found this to be a curveball. This is not just Brady anymore. It's Richard Seymour. It's a guy, of course, with Raider history, a guy with Patriot history for all those that still got a sharp axe. Is this the start of a trend? Well, if you look at the value in professional sports franchises, they have gone one direction in recent decades, and no more, not even close, than the NFL. This is interesting. I have a feeling this is a start of a trend. I think we're going to see more and more guys want some kind of ownership piece. Who have already played, who already have earned money, who already have had their career. Not at the start of their career, for God's sake. But let's see where this goes. This is interesting. I do believe, look, when you've got a classic franchise like the Raiders, it's not a surprise that there's demand. I don't know how many franchises at all would be interested in this. I would not think very many. These are very powerful poker chips, very valuable assets. But this is interesting from a business side and from a former player involvement side. Let's see where this goes and see, is Seymour the last guy, or do we maybe come out of the end of the summer months? Do we get into training camp and all of a sudden people are kicking it around training camps and other rumors come out that other past players want a piece of an NFL franchise at some point?
I like the idea of former players coaching. I love the idea of former players being owners. I think it just makes the league better. I love the trend. Now, clearly, each NFL team, I am told, has to file with the NFL a succession plan. I don't know if it's for their approval or just to say, here's our succession plan. Because they are a franchise, I would assume it's got to have approval. I have asked multiple people. Nobody knows what the Raiders' plan is. So I would think it would be awesome if it was all of a sudden you had a bunch of players who had chunks in ownership. We know there is, or there was at one point, minority ownership already. That was done. Amy Trask talked about going and finding that money for Al. So we know at one time there was. I think this is fascinating. And when you're the Raiders, who your motto is once a Raider, always a Raider, and probably the most player-friendly franchise in all the National Football League, yet again, the Raiders are taking a leap of leadership as a trendsetter in the NFL. I like this. I think it's fascinating. What about that angle, Johnny?
Obviously, look, the people watching this are super fans. They know Al Davis's history and how unique it was in his position to go from where he did to ownership, to elevating guys like Art Shell, to keeping maybe too many guys around that was best for his franchise. So this is kind of in the DNA of it. From a business perspective, John Elway comes to mind. Everybody knows the classic story of his opportunity to own a piece of the Broncos and declined it. And I'm sure he's got a lot of money. He would have an unbelievable amount more had he taken that ownership of the Broncos. So I do not think we're going to see a shortage of guys from approximately Elway's era and later. Obviously, Seymour's a little later, who would consider or want a piece, whether it's a Warwick Dunn or dozens of other names. This is no surprise. This is these guys' life. This is their passion. For those that could actually afford it. And obviously we've got players with significant money now. Let's see if this goes anywhere during the rest of the 2020s. I think it may have some serious legs.
So when you sent me of this story, and knew we were going to discuss it, I reached out to somebody at the league and just said, what do you think the Raiders are worth? And they said that the last figure they had heard was $6 billion, which is what I've heard. So if you're buying just over 10%, let's just say roughly $600 million, that's real money. And for these players that have good financial advisors and people that take care of their money, that's not something that's unattainable when you're making the kind of money that they make. If you invest well, you can have that leverage. This is certainly doable, but it's got to be doable by star players with great disciplined investing.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's going to be a lot of guys knocking on doors or making calls, and they're not going to get returned, or they're going to be like, no, we can't have 500 guys owning a piece of, the Tampa Bay Bucks or whatever it might be. This is going to be a unique thing. It is really interesting to follow. I didn't think of the Elway angle at first, but Richard Seymour knows the Elway angle. Tom Brady knows the Elway angle. Many, many, many players today, or players of recent times, they know that angle. So if there's a chance to get a piece of something like the Seahawks or the Cardinals in Arizona, let's see what happens. Maybe we could an eye on that. Let's see what happens to Arizona, because as I've gone on record before, and others have as well, there's likely to be an ownership change there. Maybe this is like a piece of kindling for what should be a pretty aggressive. When the Cardinals go up for sale, there's going to be a lot of people looking to purchase that team in such a serious United States size market. They're going to have bidders, and let's see if some of them might just be names we're all familiar with, excuse me.
Yeah. I keep hearing from NFL people, Bezos wants a team. He's ready to stroke a check right now. John, I was told something unique by my friend who I reached out to from the league, and I wanted to bring it up because it's germane to this subject. But we were talking about the Raiders and all of it, and he said, and now listen, he doesn't speak for the commissioner. He's just given his opinion. But he said to me, he goes, I don't know that they want to have ownership with 70, 80 owners, with equality. He said, but as these franchises continue to grow, you're going to see very few opportunities where it stays in the same family for 50, 60, 75 years. That it's going to end up, and I said to him, do you think there could be a situation arise where the norm is no longer a single owner? It's a conglomerate. And he says that the more money that goes into it, when you start talking private equity or whatever, it's there. Now, he did not bring this up, but I did. But there were reports about Jerry Jones thinking about selling the team, setting a record. Does he sell it to a Saudi Arabian buyer, or does he sell it to a investment firm? I mean, if you've got an investment firm running the team, to me, that just sounds like a nightmare. I think as one of the, as you and I both know, because we've been to college, one of the things they teach you is the rule of unintended consequences. And as this league and these franchises continue to grow, Johnny, are we approaching the rule of unintended consequences that it's going to be almost impossible to keep these things family or one person owned?
I don't think so yet, because there's enough owners that realize that's an issue. Look, the private equity thing is very interesting. We've seen the Fenway Sports Group. We've seen others involved. There are plenty of folks watching. There are plenty of folks on this show that have thought, maybe I would put a little money into a giant pool of private equity that would own a chunk of a pro sports team, because it's an alternative investment to some of the traditional ones that we see. So that is coming. There's no doubt. It's really going to be a focus of how much comes to the NFL. My prediction is very little at first and very little over a long period of time. There's too many owners, whether you're talking Steelers or Giants or other real serious legacy franchises. You're talking folks like the Allen family for the Seahawks, etc. I think they're going to say, hey, we don't have to get into this. We're not in the position that the NHL is in. We're not in a position that some of the other sports are in financially, or the other, whether it's arenas or certain ownership groups. We don't need to do this. I would expect it to be coming slow and basically at somewhat of a cap. The NFL owners can pretty much run their sport how they want to. They've got a very well-paid and giant mouthpiece in Roger Goodell. And it's very interesting sometimes to listen to what he says, what he doesn't say also. And I have started to take this as not the opinions and thoughts of Roger Goodell. I'm starting to frame it more as I've gotten older, as this is what the owners want him to say. And that's what I took away from the Sun Valley interview that we're going to talk about in a minute. I'm not trying to get there, but that's really what I would be paying attention to if I were curious what extent private equity, what extent multiple owners will be coming into the sport. My last thought of that is a warning from way back when, from another sport, from a Charlie Brown type franchise called the Toronto Maple Leafs that have not won the big one or been close in a long time. When I was pretty close to the NHL, there were a lot of the old names that were still around. The Wirtz family, the Patrick family, etc. The Maple Leafs had so many owners, it seemed to harm them in getting anywhere competitive-wise. Way too many cooks in the kitchen. I got to think that so many NFL owners realize too many cooks in the kitchen doesn't work. I just take an example with the Pittsburgh Steelers. If there were more cooks in the kitchen, do you think Mike Tomlin would have ever lasted this long?
No, not even close.
We know what's going on. We know what's going on relative to Steelers, Giants, other people that are probably be like, whoa, that's not a great idea. So it'll be interesting to see to what extent this comes in. And again, whether it's the Cardinals or some other, the next big franchise that is for sale, that will be very interesting to me to see what is bid, who is bidding, and who gets it. Odds are, as you mentioned, the odds are on Bezos, but let's see who else comes in the mix.
All right, John, I want to talk to you because Roger Goodell doesn't do it a lot. But yesterday in Sun Valley, he spoke on CNBC, I believe it was CNBC, about the NFL. So he doesn't speak often. And usually when he does, like at the Super Bowl, he keeps a lot of media out. Even credentialed media keeps a lot of media out, which I find fascinating. But he spoke on CNBC. You're an attorney. You're a guy that parses words. You understand the importance of words. John, give everybody your take because, man, you had some fascinating ones.
A lot of focus was on the broadcast partners expanding. And the message that I took, which I place as the owners wanted him to say this, is, hey, we're going to go where the fans are. We think, which is true, the market has spoken on the Christmas Day games. They loved it. Super high ratings. We think as the NFL, the market has told us we've got a ton of fans at Netflix, so we're going to go there too. That was a big stressor to me. What that tells me is that right now there is a critical mass of owners, certainly not all of them, that are placing a serious premium on the dollar. That's okay right now, but that's something long-term to keep an eye on. You don't want to be a sport that's so focused on the dollar, you start compromising the integrity of your competition or doing stupid things or over bloating your playoffs, etc. Mm-hmm. So I watch that and I say, there must be enough owners that want him to go with the message of money, money, money. And that's what came out. Also, what came out is that there's this real serious push and desire to play more games internationally. When I heard that, I thought this is a bargaining chip for an 18-game regular season that has 2 bye weeks built in, plus that little bye before game 1. And I think to myself as I'm hearing him, this is not by accident. This is well thought out. And now we have a set of bargaining chips in the air. You want us to play more games internationally? Obviously, a bye week might come into play more, and then you've got to move to make the 18-game schedule. That's kind of what surprised me a little bit, but maybe some of us are in denial about how big a push this is. We've got basically a permanent home base in Europe now. That stadium is set up. It's going to have games. Maybe we underestimated how big a deal that was. We've talked about, and he talked about the game in Sao Paulo, and I also saw on CNBC an Eagles season ticket holder talking about that game too. We've already talked about some time zone issues, and we'll reset it when we get to week 1 because it'll probably be a featured foursome game. But I take away that this international expansion is going to pick up in pace. It's probably going to include the preseason, and it fits nicely as a framework to extend the season to 18, extend to 20 games. I think that's probably as far as we can go. As far as how there's 52 weeks in a year, 20 for a regular season. It's starting to feel like we're getting full at Thanksgiving and we gotta like release the belt or whatever. I don't think we can go past that. 20 weeks, 18 games looks like it's going to be max stuff. The gas tank will be full, but this international element, it's not going to be popular here. What I'm trying to wrap my head around is, and what I think Goodell kind of delivered was, we don't really care about here. There's enough people watching. There's so many. There's so much demand. They're going to be there. They're not going to not watch the game in South Korea or in Europe or somewhere else, South America. I don't know how much further north we can go. There's no football stadium in Alaska, Hawaii, etc. This is the push that's coming. And between now and say 2030, we're going to see an exponential rise in the international games. That's really the major takeaway I took from that is they have no problem going to extra broadcast partners. They're kind of taking the fans for granted. And this international push is real.
John, I'm going to tell you right now, and I may be completely wrong. I think this is dumb. My father was a very successful businessman. He used to always tell us kids, never make a decision only about money. If you do, you're setting yourself up for failure. And I understand they're the golden goose. It's got to be fed. You want more, 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 more. I get all that. But I think they are dangerously, when you start taking away games and moving them overseas and all that kind of stuff, bad news. All right, I'm not against some games, but where I think it's going is bad news. And I tell you this, I'm talking to players. And I was talking recently over the 4th of July weekend. We spent some time with NFL people. We'll just leave it there. And I asked, what do you think about games internationally? And one of them looked right at me. And it was not a political statement. It wasn't a Republican statement. It wasn't a Democrat statement. He goes, hell no. He goes, I already hate when I have to pay a jock tax in California. He goes, I don't want to spend 70% of my income taxes in a socialist place in Europe. No. And he talked about, I said, he goes, there are just so much there. What are you going to do with us traveling? Because if we have to live there, it's going to be worse. Do we get more money? Are those countries going to give us a break for their taxes? I'm just telling you, talk to several players about it. There does not seem to be, okay, maybe one or two teams a year, great. There does not seem to be overwhelming support of this at all. It's fascinating to me. All right, I want to move on from this to some training camp hurdles for some teams. I've talked about the Chiefs. I think the dumbest thing that ever happened was to talk about the three-peat. Joe Dumars, I talked to him and Isaiah Thomas once with the Pistons about that kind of talk. I think they have put so much pressure on themselves. I don't think they're going to make it. I've been on the limb. I just don't think they're going to win it. I think the pressure's too big. Your thoughts on the Chiefs setting themselves up?
A lot of folks love this line. I want to say it again. Complacency has killed a lot more cats than curiosity. So the Chiefs are already in a battle against complacency. Their focus should be there. It should not be on what you're talking about, which is setting yourself up. You're more likely to set yourself up for failure when you even mention the word three-peat in the most competitive sport in the world. So many things to go wrong. So many injuries possible. This is a challenge like the Chiefs haven't experienced before. It's nothing against them. Not many people possibly ever have. Have we really ever seen anybody come close to a three-peat? Probably not. Does this look like it might be the best fit for it? Yeah, other than the fact that it is the NFL, long season, etc. What I'm interested in is we've seen distractions for the Chiefs, not all of them good, some of them bad. We have to think about what Bill Polian talked about, the chemistry, the economic chemistry, etc. Is that Chiefs room going to be the same exact room that they left when they were in Las Vegas? I don't know. I would encourage them, and you would think, and maybe I don't know if this is just age or whatever, or perspective, because you talked about the Pistons that realized that there's no possible good in trying to fuel the hype for a three-peat that's already going to be over-fueled and spilling out. I'm interested to see how veteran they are, especially at the top, with two guys that are candidly okay with being a little flashier than past generations were. I don't remember Montana, Rice, and Craig rolling around necessarily like Kelsey or Mahomes did. I don't have a problem with it. They can do whatever they want. But it makes it more difficult for that to live up to. They've got the biggest target on them, no doubt. Our hats are all off to them for what they've done. But as they start this camp, I want to see from day one, let's see how they handle it. How do they handle the act? The big fight here is complacency. It's not three-peat. That's what I'm focused on.
John, I want to talk to you about something that I find absolutely fascinating. These new kicking rules. I can't wait to see it. I know the players are excited about it. The coaches are excited about it. To me, I think this is going to make the NFL. I think this is going to be one of the funnest new things in the NFL in a long time.
Well, it could get really fun with the wild card that is that extra third quarterback slot. We are hearing from super knowledgeable folks around the league a whole lot longer than many around the media and around the sport that you may see some teams really take an athlete as a third quarterback and find out, can this person cover kicks? Can they kick? Can they punt? There's a chance that a different dimension is going to come into the NFL in the kicking game. That really is interesting. And the weird thing is this kind of quasi extra roster spot for the third quarterback. I've got my eyes on that. When it gets to be later in the camp process, when the situation is coming up of who gets cut, who doesn't, who's practice squad material, I want to see who teams are keeping as their third quarterback. Are they keeping a guy that is really a one or two tool guy, maybe a guy that's just a passer, there's still some out there, or are they actually taking a guy that maybe played multiple positions at the college level who maybe doesn't even look like a quarterback? And if so, I got my eyes on that guy to see, is he going to be part of the kicking game? Because I'm excited too. The kicking game in the NFL is going to change.
John, do you think Bill Belichick coaches next year? I can't see it. I guess I can see where he doesn't, but man, he's too good. I just think someone's going to give him a shot.
I have the impression, and it's not just because I'm in Atlanta, I think that there was some real shock in Bill Belichick that he is not the coach of the Atlanta Falcons. His reaction since then has suggested, maybe I didn't see this. Maybe that's not the way I thought this was going to go. he is such an amazing coach, and to his ever-loving credit, he loves the game. I'm sure if we were talking to him today, he would be able to seriously tell you, yeah, I think I can coach better, and he's going to pick things up this year and apply them. Yes, I think he's going to coach again as soon as next year. And I mean, I'm not trying to cook up a wild scenario in Arizona, but if there's an ownership change anywhere of significance, there's a really good chance that that's a good first guy to go. If not next year, it would have to be 26. If not 26, done.
Yep, totally agree with you. John, Aiden O'Connell, the Raiders quarterback, he beat Russell Wilson, beat Justin Herbert, he beat Patrick Mahomes, he beat a lot of guys, finished the last 5 games of the year, 9 touchdowns, 1 interception, and now ranking the top 32 starters, and the Raiders have said he's our guy. He's not even getting ranked. I'm not pretending he's Patrick Mahomes. We don't know what he is, but some people are just looking incredibly ignorant when they just show him zero respect at all. Clearly the Raiders do. They didn't go draft anybody. They got an undrafted free agent, but they go and sign Gardner Minshew, but make it clear it's Aiden's job. It makes no sense to me, the disrespect. I love your thoughts.
My thoughts are that most of the fans watching us now are smart enough to realize the difference between actual football analysis media and media that either clickbait or put something together based on what you think. I think if you look at it from an analysis situation, your analysis of Aiden O'Connell, if you're relatively objective and even keeled, is not the same as what you see in some of these rankings. I think it can serve Aiden O'Connell well. We're not going too deep into the Raiders schedule yet. We got some time for that, of course. But I think when you look at, I've previewed the schedule. I'm sure a lot of folks out there have. There's a couple of benchmarks that are relatively early where you're thinking, okay, by then we're probably going to know more. And by then we'll probably know enough about Aiden O'Connell. I think the thing that serves Aiden O'Connell best is actually something that served a lot of Purdue quarterbacks best. And it does kind of relate to that train that they've got as a logo. Aiden O'Connell's best football comes when he has essentially blinders on and he is going down that track straight and focused on where he is going. If he's going to do that, as simple as it sounds, he will become better. He will become more consistent. And he will become the best version of an NFL quarterback that he can be, whether that is a starter, a division champion, more, or a backup. That's the way he's got to get there. The great maturity advantage that Aiden O'Connell has already shown the entire league is that he is on that path and track. People making those kind of lists without a lot of analysis probably are not. You want a list with a lot of analysis? Our friend Jim Miller and his show on Sirius XM, those guys are going down the track with analysis. Some of those make more sense to me to listen to and pay attention to. I recognize the other ones are out there. The fans recognize that they're not all based on an analysis situation. And once we do hear from Bill Belichick, as he's going to jump on Inside the NFL and hopefully elsewhere, we're all going to pay attention to see what he has to say about Aiden O'Connell and about Aiden O'Connell's preparation from the end of last year through week 1 of and the first 7 or 8 games of 24.
John, I want to end with this. And over the 4th of July, I told you I spent some time with some NFL people. And the subject of Pat McAfee came up. And I don't remember how it got introduced. I didn't introduce it, but someone else did. And I made the comment, what do you guys think of Pat? To which everybody loved him. There was not one complaint. And everybody said, I think he's great for the league. I think it's great that he'll go against anybody that he wants to. They were so pro Pat McAfee. And not just because he was a former player, but just the way that he did it and the way that he does it. I'm curious. Now, I want to say something. Media's full of a lot of egos. If Hondo Carpenter dropped dead tomorrow, the NFL wouldn't miss me. Raider Nation wouldn't miss me. I'd be replaced and everything would move on. It has been a long time since a major sport like the NFL almost needed the villain in the media. And he's not a villain because he's out there being a jerk. It's just he's so honest. He's so raw. I think he's great for the league. Now, here's the deal. There are not a lot of people my age, in my mid-50s. I love McAfee. But I'm going to tell you, every kid I know loves McAfee. My son loves, everybody loves McAfee. I think he's becoming a force. I know a lot of people in the media don't like him. I think he's great. A lot of people in the media don't like him because he's able to say whatever he wants and he just kind of goes to a different drum. I think it's generational. I'm thinking back, John. Maybe Howard Cosell, maybe, and that goes back before a lot of our listeners were even born. But it's been a long time since there's been a generational media talent. How important is Pat McAfee to the National Football League?
Well, let's take some time on this one. And here's some inside knowledge for those on the media stuff. A lot of people in media, folks, they don't like people that can literally say whatever they want, whether it's mostly from an analysis perspective. We too can tell you that because we've seen it. No question. Now, it's so interesting that you mentioned Howard Cosell because he's really, if we had a Venn diagram, the 3-circle thing, he was bothered by athletes that weren't trained in high English and weren't super articulate, didn't have a bunch of words and stuff. But at the same time, he's really similar to McAfee in many ways. Here's what I see in McAfee when I step out of that Venn diagram and I look at it, see who's in it. You have thousands of former players at different levels of the sport, coaches, people that have been around, that are comfortable and love locker room talk. And Pat McAfee is bringing as much locker room talk to national airwaves as we've ever seen and we can see. So his popularity amongst players and all the guys he has on those shows is not a surprise. And I want to tip the hat to the straight man, AJ Hawk, because he does a better job on that show than anybody has an idea about. Anybody has an idea about and balancing that thing out. So on the one end, you've got great support from inside of the sport, inside of the sports world, because he's bringing an element of flying off the seat of my pants, but bringing in some locker room, some camaraderie, some of the stuff that guys who aren't playing anymore miss every day because there's nothing like it. And some of the guys in the sport and who want to be it or who are around it think it's great. You've got a totally different generation than yours and mine. You frankly have a different generation. It's what I call the I generation. Their expectations of what should be on air are remarkably different than ours, than older folks. I'm not going to pick on a guy that was a really good college quarterback and who's he's overachieved in his broadcasting career beyond belief. He's gone outside of sports. He's furniture commercials, etc. When I was coming up in media, if somebody had a voice that was that high pitched, they would have said, you're never going to be on air. Just forget it. Go do something else. My point is the perception of the gatekeepers changes as those leadership positions change. Somebody is a little bit of a risk. Yeah. But they are grabbing an audience that otherwise would not be watching or paying attention or watching as much about the NFL with Pat McAfee. And here's the major difference. This isn't a guy going on air just saying things to get a reaction who didn't play the sport. The value of that is intangible. It's hard to describe, but you know it when you see it. And you know when you see people like Bill Belichick and other folks coming on there and bantering with him. And the reach is real. Certainly, we all don't have to like it. We don't have to like everything he says. He could crash and burn and really quickly. We've seen that happen in broadcasting before. But it is not, for the time being, you can ask people about that through the whole season, and you're going to have real reactions and thoughts about it. This is something growing momentum. This is of the huge NFL fan base. This is really something I think that's focused on folks like 35 and below. And I do think there's going to be a significant impact Let's see if they try to find somebody else. Let's see if other networks try to find somebody else where you're going to be like, oh, it looks like they're trying to get a McAfee. That's what my eyes are open out for as we get into this new season. Is somebody else going to try to do that? And if so, is it going to be real? Is it going to catch on? Or is it going to be like, that looks like he's trying too hard and off they go?
I agree. And I'm going to end with this real quick because I find this fascinating. I know it isn't NFL, but I cannot tell you first of all, the ratings for College Game Day last year were great. Nick's going to be on. It's going to be great. But I'm told by people who I trust, it's all driven by Pat. He hasn't signed a deal. And you're already seeing young people say, if Pat McAfee's not back, I'm never watching Game Day again. It's fascinating. I think his meteoric rise, he's such a humble guy. He's a very good guy. I have nothing but respect for Pat and all that he's done. All right, so looks like you and I are both thumbs up on Aiden O'Connell and down on the disrespect, and thumbs up on Richard Seymour being an owner. Johnny, tell them where to find you, if you don't mind, on social media.
Yeah, and I just want to say one more thing. I like that Pat McAfee's from West Virginia. I think it's really cool because it's not a state that we always see everywhere, even though Nick Saban, of course, is. But I think it's cool. It's a different angle. On social media, my X handle is at JP Spartan. Folks, we know what's coming in a couple weeks. Get ready. We're ready.
John, I'm so excited I can hardly stand. I'm ready for football, man. Our long wandering in the wilderness is over. I'm Hondo Carpenter. That's Johnny Shop. We'll see you all tomorrow. Thanks, everybody, for listening. And again, we'll see you tomorrow.